Hello, everybody, and welcome on the Commerce Show. Today, I'm receiving Audrey Gauthier from Little Burgundy, a large retail chain across Canada. Audrey has over 10 years of experience in e-commerce management, started from the customer management, moved to a digital marketing role, and now she's VP marketing and e-commerce of Little Burgundy. She's been in the business for a long time, so she had chance to take part of lots of various subjects that we're going to be covering today. We're going to be talking about the impact of the store closure on their e-commerce for during the period of the pandemic. So what did they do when they got an increase in volume? We also talk about the experience, she implemented some serious software to enhance the e-commerce experience for the customers. So we're going to be talking about that also. Be sure to subscribe on the YouTube channel and the Spotify, and stay with us. The podcast starts right now. Hello, everybody, and welcome on the Commerce Show. Today, I'm with Audrey Gauthier from Little Burgundy. Hi, Audrey.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, yourself?
Really, really good. We're about to be out of the pandemic. Are you excited about that?
Yeah, for sure. Ontario is still a little bit behind for us. Like stores are still closed, but we see the end of the tunnel like coming. So that's good.
It's important to see the light after all this pandemic. Let's start with the questions. I know you started your career as an online marketing coordinator at La Vie en Rose. You're actually the second person from the La Vie en Rose that I'm receiving on the podcast. So that's, I think it's a great school. And then you moved to Aldo Group for the Little Burgundy division, where you're still at, but it's changed from ownership during the last years. And now you're at the role of Vice President of Marketing and e-commerce. Can you tell us more about your experience and your background?
Yeah, sure. So at first I did a bachelor in communication at Sherbrooke University. And then I did a master in business administration on the same university, Sherbrooke. And I remember after finishing my master, I really wanted to work in an advertising agency. So like LinkedIn wasn't as what it is right now. So I remember going on like a random website to find like emails of VP and founder of the agency in Montreal and reaching out to them to like just have a first contact. But honestly, it didn't work that well for me. So after a lot of reach out, finally my first opportunity was really with La Vie en Rose in retail as a digital marketing coordinator. So that's where I started. And I think you mentioned it, like that's a great school because I think the size of the business being like not too big, but not too small. I had direct contact with François Roberge, the owner and founder of La Vie en Rose. So we share a lot about like his business vision, but then it was big enough to have like multiple departments as well. So learn about like retail and they all interact together. So definitely that was a really good learning school, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I met François a few times at CQCD in Montreal, and he's a really interesting leader. And I also met his son, I think, that is still leading the company also. So yeah, that's really interesting. And how did it happen from La Vie en Rose to Aldo Group and then to Genesco? Can you explain us a little bit more what happened?
Yeah, sure. It was actually kind of funny story. When I was at La Vie en Rose, I really wanted to go to a e-tail Canada conference for some reason. There was not so many conferences at that time on e-commerce in Canada. Yep. But I remember I was actually like junior, I think, e-commerce coordinator, and they didn't have the budget for me to go. So I managed to have like free ticket to go to the conference. And then I remember like I told the VP of marketing at that time, like, I'm going to sleep at some friend's house and like it's not going to cost any travel budget. So long story short, I ended up going at eTail Canada, and that's where I saw Todd Dean, who was a VP of e-commerce for Aldo at the time. So that's about like 11 years ago. And he spoke about like omni-channel, their vision about the stores and e-commerce, and really all their innovation projects. So I was really motivated by that. And that's when I applied to Aldo and got my first opportunity with Little Burgundy. So that was in an e-commerce focused role. And then I grew my way at Aldo and became like more overseeing also the marketing brick and mortar portion, so the in-store portion as well as e-commerce. And then like we got acquired back in 2015, and I was part of the 8 people who transitioned over from Aldo to Genesco, our new parent company. So it's already since like 2015 that I'm part of the Genesco family.
That's really interesting. And for people that are listening that don't know Little Burgundy, when I told to my girlfriend this morning, I'm talking with a girl from Little Burgundy, so oh yeah, can she give me a discount for shoes? Yeah, I think you're well established. So you have I saw on your website that you have 39 stores. So basically you sell shoes, boots, sandals, bags, and accessories. I would like to know how you've been involved in this transition. I know you've been involved into the local customer service department implementation in Montreal, I think. Can you tell us how it changed and how you had to adapt yourself to the new group?
Yeah, definitely. So it's been a huge process. Like the acquisition started like going back in time in July 2015. We signed like a non-disclosure agreement. The deal wasn't done yet, but we flew to Nashville to meet those new owners, talk about LB, the brand culture, our stores, etc. And when the acquisition was finally done in December 2015, we enter what we call like a TSA, like Trade Services Agreement. So that's a period of time where like the old owner is still serving certain services during the time we onboard with the new owner. So for me, I've been quite involved being like the middle ground between Aldo and Genesco, so the point of contact for e-commerce, because we changed like everything, like from the email service provider to the e-commerce platform to the POS in store to the music like system in store, like everything was transitioned over. So that was quite a big process, like I think a 18 months process. So you went into that phase and you're really looking at all the current vendors with all the vendors that the new company has. And then we see like, which one are we bringing with us? Are we transitioning over with the vendors, or is it a time to switch also? So we changed through that process. For example, the email provider went from Salesforce with Aldo to ListTrack with Genesco. There's some others that we brought on with us and like kept during the transition. So that was kind of my key role during that period. And as you mentioned, customer service, because obviously with such like so many changes in all areas, like including warehouse, etc., customer service was a big one too, because although they have quite a robust like customer service here, but we transitioned over to Genesco customer service in Nashville. So during that phase, where we lost a bit of visibility on some orders, there were some delays in e-com orders, etc. During that transition phase, we got more complaints from customers. So that's where, I never really had to jump in the customer service department before because of all the Aldo big structure. But really during the transition, I had to step in. I remember calling about like 20 of the worst complaint, like customer that were doing the worst complaint, and really like pushing it a notch and asking them to walk me through their full experience to really understand what was going on, like what was happening with our customer service. And that's the moment where I realized that like, having customer service locally with like agents that do understand our processes, that do know the product we carry is so important versus having it from Nashville with also the Tennessee accent that is a little bit hard to understand sometimes.
Of course.
So yeah, we really needed a local customer service, which also like French agents.
Okay.
So yeah, I've been playing a key role in that, like building what we call a black jacket, pushing it to the board of director, making like a cost assessment, like return on investment on that project, and being part of the launch of our customer service department here in Montreal.
And do you have examples of why you've decided to bring back the customer support here? Was it only because of the accent, the hours where the customer support were available, or it's more a cultural fit, or what was the
I think,
main point?
yeah, I think it's all of this, because like, I mean, in Nashville, they're doing such a great job, but a lot of like things that we're doing with our stores in LB don't apply with what they're doing with Journeys. So just like some services, or we're offering like free shipping on orders, Journeys is in. So sometimes it's lost in translation. They're going to answer the customer something that applies for the other division company, but doesn't apply for LB. And in terms of product, we're really trying to engage our local customer service, do product knowledge sessions, so they're fully aware about like sizing, or just like the technical aspect of certain product versus others, so they're able to answer question, although like also do like upsell, cross sell, and the chat with the customer. So if they're a bit remote from Nashville with less engaged team, that's more difficult to do for sure.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting to understand that you had to do that transition. When we say retail and COVID in the same sentence, I can't imagine the amount of work you had to do to adapt your operations to the pandemic. Can you tell us how you had to deal with the increase of volume in the e-commerce, but also the store closures? So how, if we can talk about that a little bit, because it's something major in the last 2 years, and I would like to know how you adapt yourself and how it changed the way you work, either with your team and also with your customers.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, business wise, it's not a surprise that it's been really tough being in footwear, being in the non-essential services. We're not selling like renovation tools or anything like that have been super popular
Oh yes.
throughout COVID. Slippers though have been like really good in terms of selling, but yeah, it's been difficult with, we were about like 85% brick and mortar and 15% e-com pre-pandemic.
Okay.
It obviously changed in the past year like crazy. But we really needed to adapt in terms of allocation as well of product. Like the main issue, or the main really area of focus has been with the warehouse and in terms of allocation, because there's a lot of product that are living in our stores and are being like shipped from the stores when you order on e-com.
Okay.
So we're helping the turn of product, and it's not staying at the warehouse necessarily and not selling. So I mean, all that logistic behind has been really challenging, especially with the warehouse being a 3PL from Ontario with like very restrictive like COVID measure, less people working at the same time, etc., with shipping delays as well. So I would say like all that logistic have been challenging. We needed to adapt our communication with the consumer I'm talking about very beginning of COVID, like last March 2019. So being more transparent about like some delays we're getting in terms of shipment, sometimes from our end at the warehouse, but sometimes also because of the shipping carrier that we're also overload. So yeah, that logistic portion has been quite something. And also the fact that before our business was 85% in store and 15% e-com, we obviously needed to cut on expenses in order to stay profitable and still doing like great business. So budget had been like cut significantly on all areas. But I would say that we've been fortunate enough to be in a robust company that we're able to still invest in technology and put the gas on certain innovation to still be relevant and competitive and really make our way through COVID and still being there today.
Yeah, and we're going to be talking about those innovation and those technology push you did. And a question that got into my mind was when you had the store closure, were you still shipping from the stores, or it was only from the 3PL because the store was closed? So were you asking some employees to get in just to fulfill some orders and then leave the store, or how? Because I guess you have a lot of inventory in your store, so
Mm-hmm.
at the beginning maybe you had
Yeah.
to turn that inventory. So I'm just
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah, really great question. At the very, again, like around the month of March, so when like everything closed, I think that was like March 18 for us. The store closed. People were on temporary furlough for a certain time, so we didn't have like any store manager or assistant manager in store. We didn't even have access to some of the stores, with the mall being like totally closed.
Yeah, of
So
course.
all that inventory was dormant, and we couldn't like ship like a product that were coming from the stores. So that has been challenging at the moment where like really like the malls were reopening for shipping orders. We got access back to that inventory, and we saw the sales like increasing quite a lot in the month of April. We had the entire, even now with Ontario being closed, we have our store managers and assistant managers that are working really hard to just like do shipments and e-com orders. So in terms of just like our also utilizing our team in store, and our employees have changed through COVID, and that's something we need to adapt. We need to engage them as well, of understanding that that's now like we have to offer the customer wherever they want to shop. And if we're shipping a good bestseller from their stores, that's for the own good of the consumer, and maybe they're going to come back in store eventually, but that's just like for the business as a whole, regardless where the consumer decides to shop. So that entire like understanding from our in-store employees too was really important to COVID.
That's really interesting. And I know you're in, as you said, in the fashion shoe industry. It's a bit tough when we're talking about return rates.
Mm-hmm.
I know you have, just statistically, not just Little Burgundy, but all the shoe seller in the industry have pretty high return rate for online sales. And because of the pandemic, you've increased a lot of your online sales volume, and because you were managing the shipment mostly from a 3PL, for what I understood,
Mm-hmm.
How you had to adapt yourself for the return management and to be able to replenish the inventory after, how you did that.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean you're right. Returns are a big area of like focus for us. So definitely we're also as a competitive advantage, I would say we're offering 365 days of return, so a full year.
Oh, okay.
Most people do return it like in the next month or two,
Of course, of course.
but it's just an advantage for our consumer. And we also currently offer like free returns, so it's not all company. Like for us, if you decide to return your item to the warehouse, then like it's on us. It's quite expensive to do that, but at the same time,
Yes.
it's another advantage, competitive advantage that we're offering, being like a multi-brand retailer. So definitely returns, we're looking like really intensively at it, because our stores being closed from December 26th. I mean, Ontario and Quebec, which is pretty two big market for us. So being closed from December 26th to I think February 8th in Quebec, and then a bit longer in Ontario. All the holiday returns from previous fiscal year, it actually like the new fiscal year that started in February, because people were just waiting to return their items to see if the store was going to reopen. So they all kind of decided to return their holiday gift at the same time. So that's when really it hit us, like around like February and March.
Okay.
So basically we're looking very intensively at returns. We're onboarding a new company called Reverse Logic as well.
Okay.
Which it pretty much give more visibility for the customer for the outbound. So everything that is tracking in terms of like shipments. So a little bit like Narvar that you probably know in terms of just tracking your shipment.
Oh.
But it also gives visibility in terms of the inbound, so the returns. So it allows customer to directly on the website print their return label, and for us to track it from the moment they initiated the return to where it's now, and also plan in terms of the staff at the warehouse to evaluate the volume of returns that are coming our way.
That's really interesting.
And there's also the dashboard in terms of just the analytic behind the reason why they actually return it. Was it too big, too large, too small? Is it like the color, it was not meeting their needs or whatever? So this analytic allow us to make some adjustment on the side. If like we realize that a SKU, a certain style is like running too large, then we're going to adapt the product description. We're going to let customer know to maybe buy a size smaller, or these type of just product like accuracy a little bit more. So we're really trying to navigate through this by really looking at the analysis of what are these returns. But it's true that, I mean, it's tricky footwear. So some customers do order like a 9, a 9.5, and a 10. I mean, good for them. We're for free shipping and free return. But for us, it's a bit challenging because then you can sell that inventory while it's on like being shipped. And yeah, that's a logistic issue for sure.
So I guess that you're more investing into prevention and optimization of your product page and product informations instead of restricting customer after 7 days they can't return, or sometimes I'm talking with business owners and they're like, oh, we're not gonna allow any returns, or it's gonna be only in store, or and I think at that point we can't track the the exit from the customer from the online store. Yes, of course we can track the conversion rate, but we cannot exclude the traffic that we're supposed to buy and they got out because of the return policy and that stuff. So I guess it's a really nice way to do it, and I'm sure you're in the right path. And talking about product information, so how do you work to improve the product accuracy in terms of color, description, size charts? Do you have tools or things that you've implemented to make that work and be more accurate?
Yeah. Right now we're looking at True Fit, because in terms of that's basically a tool in footwear. They're probably doing other like product category.
I think
but
it's
basically
FitFinder. Is it like FitFinder a sub branch?
Yeah, exactly. So if you want to buy a Vans product, for instance, it might ask you like, what's your size in Adidas? What's your size in other brands? And then it's going to give you most likely a 9 in Vans, for example. So this helps because a lot of the return reasons are in terms of sizing. So that's one thing we're looking at. In terms of color accuracy too, we're trying really like we're looking at comments basically of reviews of product and trying to catch like, okay, maybe saturation and that color item isn't right. So we're going to check based on like those reviews comments. So that's another factor too. We're really trying to generate more customer reviews on the website. So it helps the consumer in terms of being like confident about what they're buying, looking especially at size, how it's fitting, but also it helps us getting just more knowledge on product accuracy. So that's really something we're trying to give incentive for people to review on the website, their e-commerce purchase, but also their in-store purchase. So that's really been a focus this year of just like changing our email reviews, or really the incentive we're giving just to generate more reviews. So people can feel more confident about what they're buying, and ultimately, hopefully, getting less return as well, because they're buying the right thing for them and their needs.
And when you were talking about, colors of the product, are you taking pictures of each of your product, or you're taking the pictures of the manufacturers and the brand? How does that work on your end?
Yeah, it depends. Like sometimes we have a photo studio based out of Montreal, so
Okay.
we shoot the product, and sometimes we're trying to take the product image from the brands. Sometimes it doesn't follow our guidelines, or we
Of
don't have
course.
enough angles from the vendors, so we're gonna take additional pictures, and we're also trying to have as much as possible pictures as well on models. So they see, especially for bags, for example, or accessories like socks,
Yep.
it's just easier to see it on a model versus just a product shot.
Okay. Okay, interesting. And when we were talking before about the new tools that you're implementing, I read in your description that you're currently implementing a tool called Curate to generate some user generated content. Would like to know why you needed a tool like that and why you've choose to go with Curate.
Yeah. So Curate is basically allowing us to ask directly through their platform people that have tagged either Little Burgundy or a brand that we carry on Instagram, and then ask them the rights for their pictures to put on our website. We have like a carousel of UGC images on the homepage, but we also generate that carousel on the PDP level. So, for example, you go on a Converse product on a Chuck 70 green Converse, if we have enough images of that specific product, it's going to generate like UGC image of that specific product. And then if we don't have enough of that specific SKU, it's going to generate other product from Converse. So it's good as also in terms of like you may also like, I would say,
Yep.
but it just like put the product in a different context. So with people shopping more online, seeing less, like not trying it in store, not seeing it on themselves, like with a certain styling or whatever, I think it just contextualize more the product with those UGC images. And we're also using them for our newsletter. So those are generally newsletter that perform quite well as well. And at the beginning, we started with Curate around May last year. And that was a moment where we had less access to our office for photo shoots. So we were again like more limited in terms of images we were doing and getting. So that was another way of just getting like more different images to play with for website or newsletters or any digital mix.
That's interesting. You've bridged the gap between the fact that you weren't having access to enough content and bringing your user from from a content perspective. So that's really interesting. And are you working on some incentives to ask your customers to push some pictures or comment or reviews? How do you have a strategy for the UGC around it? I'm curious.
We do with our employees, because having stores across like all Canada with like quite decent amount of employees as well. So we do have incentive and like internal contests with employees to just like tag Little Burgundy, and they're also like good ambassadors of the brands for sure.
Of course.
And then in terms of incentive, not necessarily at the consumer level, but we're doing a lot of seeding as well. So a lot of these images are also part of like a seeding program we do with the brands. And that allows us to have like really good images that are then being used on the website to correlate to those UGC images.
That's interesting. And if we say like look back at the last year, what have been the biggest challenge or the biggest issue you faced with your e-commerce store, and how you've solved that issue, or if it's still currently in resolution?
Yeah, well, I touched base a bit on it earlier, but definitely in terms of allocation and logistic with their warehouse. But it's also been a good time to really I think all issues or challenges we had in the past they've been there pre-COVID, but they've been amplified with like the volume of like e-commerce business we were doing. So in terms of just like logistic at the warehouse and really processing returns or like unpacking POs at the same time of having like more e-commerce orders to fulfill. It's been a bit challenging. So we're really working on just like doing more automatization with our 3PL warehouse to really get a little bit faster on that process.
Of course.
And another thing has been allocation, like COVID, in terms of just like production of product and allocation and delivery, not necessarily from us to the consumer, but from like our vendors to Little Burgundy. They also have like our vendors also have their like issues with their own warehouse and like COVID measure. Certain time there's been like closure also at certain warehouse. So there's definitely been delay in shipment and getting the goods at the right time where the customer wanted it. So that's been challenging, and I feel like there's like almost a handful of really good footwear product right now that are selling like crazy, but in terms of allocation with all the production and like the delays, we're a little bit thin on certain like good sellers in terms of allocation of products. So it's been challenging in this way as well, but hopefully the next year will be better in that term.
Yeah, I think it's not just specific to industry. Lots of industry get some product shortage, and it's part of the game. And I think customers are understanding that well. And now we see even in the car industry or technology industry, we see shortage in terms of parts, and it takes like 2 years before you get your your new car. So
Yeah.
it doesn't really make sense. So I guess it's gonna be solved in few months, maybe a year. Let's talk just a little bit about advertising and marketing strategy. What would you say that has changed for you in terms of advertising or traffic acquisition and over the last year and a half with the COVID? Have you adapt your strategy? Have you opened new channels in terms of acquisition? I'm curious about that.
Yeah. So as I said, like we've been fortunate enough that our company do see that like ecom has been really helping us go through COVID. So
Yep.
I've got like an increase in budget for paid advertising. So that's been like a really big channel for us.
Okay.
In terms of acquisition. We also devoted more time to SEO. So that's also a channel that is bringing more traffic and revenue for us. Like
Okay.
we didn't added any resources this year, but we've really went into like giving our teams like training on SEO, onboarding new company. We're working with SEM Rush to help us in
Yep.
terms of SEO. So that's been a good gain. And we also launched affiliate program for LB.
Oh.
We didn't have it in the past. We launched it in last May, I believe. And it's really contributing to a lot of the revenue. So that's been a really successful program for us so far. So that's been one channel that is performing quite well. And
Nice.
I think in terms of advertising too this year, it's been as a marketer and not necessarily just e-commerce, it's been a challenging year in terms of all the social issues, all the conversation that were happening. It's been a really eye-opener, I feel, for a lot of companies. But also as a marketer, we have to be really mindful of the people are sensitive to with like every stress around us right now. So I think in terms of messaging, we've been really careful about like not offend anyone and really being like mindful, like being informed on everything, every social issue that was happening. So I think
Yes.
that's been really a different year also in terms of how we approach our campaign, how we include diversity in all our campaigns. So that was a big thing for us this year.
That's really interesting. And if we just go back, because yeah, I think I'm a big fan of affiliate marketing. What's your program right now, and how do you work? Are you working with like an affiliate network, or how you've coordinated that, and what has been the steps, if we can tell,
Yeah.
what prior to the launch of the campaign, have you recruited or hired some affiliate manager, or how do you work to make that work, and what type of return a business can expect from an affiliate program?
Yeah.
Lots of questions,
Um,
but
yeah. So, I mean, we didn't add any affiliate expert on the team. I think I did a little bit of affiliate at the very beginning of my career. So it was really, I mean, I'm definitely not a specialist in affiliate, and neither no one on the team was. So we basically went with the same company that Journeys had for numerous number of years. So with Commission Junction, and they really help us through the entire process, from onboarding publishers, looking at placements of newsletter with certain publishers, or just banners on their website, of the strategy of increased revenue share with the publishers. So to be honest, we're really trusting them in the process, and we're following up obviously weekly calls, and we're looking at the performance, everything. But we don't have dedicated resources on our team handling affiliates. So they're really the relationship builder between publishers and us in terms of managing those relationships and those contracts.
okay.
And it's been challenging too, because it needed creation of assets. So we didn't increase our digital design team either. So they needed just to produce more paid advertising asset, everything the affiliates program needed. So it's been an additional work in terms of just content creation from our team too. But that's all done internally, because we're really strict about our brand DNA and how we show up on various platforms. So it's been really successful, honestly, so far. It's been more work than we anticipated, but we're good partners with Commission Junction, so the relationship is going pretty well so far.
So that's really interesting for our listeners that have basically no experience for affiliate, but if they go with a solution like CG, they will get the support they need to be successful in the let's say the step by step, and also access to all the influencers out there. So for listeners, CG is like a marketplace of affiliate offer for affiliate, where you can meet brands and start promoting content in terms of in exchange of a revenue share, or a pay-per acquisition, or a pay-per lead that will be generated. So that's really interesting to get the feedback of you about that. We saw a rise also in terms of the buy now, pay later solution. I know over the last year, I know you've implemented the solution called PayBright. Have you seen an impact on your sale? Have you seen a raise in terms of average order value? Have you seen a pretty good impact on that? What's your thought?
So yeah, I think I started conversation on that maybe a year pre-COVID.
Okay.
So I think COVID is going to be my new milestone, 3 years post-COVID, pre-COVID, but
it's like the 20,
yeah.
2020 anyway.
But yeah, I've been pretty skeptical before in terms of that type of solution for the goods we're carrying. So in my mind, it was really more for furniture, or some more expensive goods. So I was skeptical of even wanting to go with this type of solution for footwear. But with COVID, we really wanted to give that flexibility to our consumers. So that's really where we launched it. And it's been quite successful. So I was really skeptical of the adaptation rate of people actually using it. But also in terms of because we're paying for that solution too, it's there's no charge on the consumer, but we're paying a percentage fee
merchant
on
side.
every purchase.
Yeah.
So I was skeptical of all that. But really we saw there's about, I would say 12% of consumer that are using it through our website.
Of all your sales, 12% are from PayBright. So
yeah, exactly.
That's pretty
and
interesting.
The average order value had definitely increased when it's a purchase being made through PayBright. So that actually paid it for itself. in terms of services. So we're now looking at having the solution also available for in-store purchase. Because currently it's only for e-commerce, but we're looking at offering that services for our consumer in store as well because of the success that we're having online.
Yeah, and thinking omni-channel, that's really important, because if the customers can't pay with PayBright in store, they will say, oh, well, I'm just gonna buy it online, and you're losing in-store traffic. So that's not what you want. So it does make really a lot of sense. I'm happy to hear you had some great success, because over the last 3 years we're having lots of companies reaching out from that type of business model, but prior to that I never heard of. So yeah, that's funny to see that it goes pretty well. In my final questions, I would like to know how, with your busy lifestyle, do you stay up to date in the e-commerce area, and what do you consume each day to get knowledge and stay up to date?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm pretty busy, I would say, with work and personal life too. So it's hard to really stay up to date, I find. On a daily basis, like obviously I'm looking at the news, especially during COVID, like we needed to know like everything that was happening. It's changing all the time. So it's been really like overwhelming. But I'm reading like footwear news, like Retail Insiders, Retail Council of Canada. So a little bit less focus on e-commerce in terms of my reading, but more in terms of just retail in general. And in terms of e-commerce, I find that podcasts actually like yours are really helping me staying up to date, because I can go for a run and then listen to a podcast and still like still being informed and up to date, but not necessarily taking my personal time either. So I think it's a great balance to listen at the podcast to stay up to date.
Yep.
And I think lastly, like obviously I'm probably like everyone listening to your podcast, but I'm getting a lot of like LinkedIn inbox, and I try like maybe once or twice a month to actually do a meeting with one of them, like just like listen to what they have to say, share as a technology. Doesn't mean we're going to go for it, but I give it the chance, and it also allow me to stay up to date on what type of technologies are out there.
Yep.
And then like there's like really good e-commerce players. Like I have to admit, I check a lot Altitude Sport in terms of like the technology they're using. I check like just their same day delivery. So I try to, with the best players out there, I try to look at like what they're doing and try to see then like, could it be a fit for LB, or maybe not, or maybe yes, depending of our reality. So looking at the competitive landscape, especially here in Canada, it's quite insightful too.
That's interesting. You stay eye open around you. That's really important. What would you be giving as an advice to a newcomer in the industry, or someone that want to change career and would like to reach a role like yours, because you're VP Marketing and e-commerce of a pretty nice company? So how would you recommend those people to play their career, and what steps they should look at?
Yeah, I think like curiosity is like a big one. Like just like always be on the lookout for opportunities and trying to make connection as well. I think there's a lot of people like in a leadership role that are very vocal and they take a lot of place, but I'm not this type of person personally. I'm more like an active listener, and then like just like asking question and then jumping in like when I feel like I understand the process. And that's so that's really my type. And also our CEO Genesco, that's a girl actually, Mimi Vaughn, and I feel she's really like that too. Like she's not necessarily coming in a meeting and really like making her way like super loudly, but she's such an active listener, and she's always gonna ask the right question because she's really been listening to what you've been saying. So I really, to me, that has been my style, and that really helped me grow in my career. And also not being afraid to ask questions. Like if you don't understand the process, like to make your way, you can't pretend your entire career. So you really need to understand what you're doing, ask questions, not being afraid, even at a VP level, like managing all e-commerce and marketing. It's not true that I know everything, that I fully know affiliate or every area. So I feel being humble and able to ask questions and be transparent about what you know and what you don't know is really allowing you to go further in your career. And making connection, and I still do something I'm kind of proud of. Like I organize breakfast, monthly breakfast club with my team. So basically, I invite like someone to speak to them like on a monthly basis, and that's from various areas. So my goal is just to inspire them and like helping them make those connections that they wouldn't necessarily do by themselves. And I feel that's a good way of just like getting like good connection. The last one we had was actually Jason Good is the director of sales for Vans in the Asia Pacific.
Wow.
So he's living from Korea. And that was so interesting of like learning about like Coupang and some companies out there in Asia that's like some marketplace that we're not even aware of, but they're pretty much the size of Amazon. So that was so interesting, but being curious, making those connections, entertaining your network as well is really important as you grow and make your way in your career, I feel.
Wow. That's really interesting to see that you're running some lunch and learns, as we call it internally on our end, but some breakfast. That's really cool. Thank you so much, Audrey, for being with us today. It was really amazing to see all your career and also your knowledge. I'm sure lots of people will have enjoyed that podcast. Do you have an ending note or something you want to say?
I don't know, just I feel like for people starting their career, like just be passionate and go for it, because it's and you need to have fun. Like, I mean, it's been like 10 years, almost 10 years I'm with the LB and I'm still having fun, and there's always like new things to learn and new connection to make, and like you can always surpass yourself. So I think like just go for it.
Yeah, I think we're just at the beginning of the e-commerce area, so lots of things to learn. Thank you, Audrey. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.